occupation of Taiwan could be a game changer for China, owing to the island's unmatched semiconductor production capabilities and the presence of a highly advanced economy. USA's resistance to the Chinese aggression on Taiwan should be a priority if they want to avoid their arch rival from having access to highly advanced semiconductor technology. However, US President Biden is too scared to keep up with his promises. One could question Biden's participation in the situation if the US military is recommending against aggravating the CCP. However, the protection of Taiwan is highly in the United States' interest, and the world has witnessed a much tougher policy towards Taiwan during the Trump era.
After China joined the World Trade Organization, the WTO, in 2001, the Chinese economy grew at an annual rate of 10% for a decade, while the US's share of the world economy shrank to almost half, to 22% during that span. 17. China's sustained miracle economic growth over the past 4 decades, at an average rate 4 times of the US, has redefined the global economic order. 8. China has replaced the US as the primary engine of global economic growth. Since the 2008 financial crisis, China accounts for 1/3 of all growth in the world's GDP. 9. Over the past 2 decades, China has overtaken the United States to become the manufacturing workshop of the world.
The yuan makes about 2% of global payments and reserves. When it comes to foreign reserves, the red note is a new entrant. It was only in 2015 that the International Monetary Fund recognized the yuan as a foreign reserve. 5 years on, the yuan is still 2.02% of the global reserve. The US dollar, on the other hand, is 61.99%. This is according to the IMF's latest data. The difference, like you can see, is pretty wide. How does China plan to bridge the gap? Like it always does, through bullying. You must have heard about China's Belt and Road Initiative. Did you know that some of the projects are being partly financed in the yuan and local currency? Take a look at what's happening in Africa. South Africa and 7 other countries are using the yuan. Reports claim at least 14 countries are using the renminbi as their reserve currency.
Russia and China officially to announce a new global reserve currency. And once again, as happens often with consequential news in the United States and the West, no one has noticed and no one seems to care. This is a Substack article by Quoth the Raven, uploaded on July 22nd. Because of how harsh the pro-global government EU, Build Back Better, WEF bloc countries have been on Russia, there's a new alliance forming, not only between Russia and China, but between the BRICS countries, which include Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, to create their own new global reserve currency. There was a recent BRICS summit where you can see some of the member nations are allowing their leaders to engage in more public formality, demonstrating a handshake relationship. From the data that I'd seen showing the political relationships of a Donald Trump with a few of these leaders, specifically considering Indian Prime Minister Modi and Brazilian President Bolsonaro, you could almost find this alliance a type of counterpoint to the CSRQ financial system information I covered in a co-uploaded video. While I doubt the legitimacy of these leaks, I do find it interesting that Bolsonaro is listed as a restricted, unfavored member, and here he is, pictured with Putin, Xi, and Modi, suggesting that perhaps they would be put on a similar status due to their alliance in this system if it is something being put in place. Quoth the Raven apparently wrote an article in February 28th stating fiat currency 0 hour, Russia and China might collectively challenge a dollar's reserve status. Person says, everybody told me it was a stretch. Today, it isn't so much anymore. Meanwhile, since the BRIC conference, ties between Russia and China continue to tighten, with Japan even warning this week about the pair's strengthening of military ties. At the same time, China has closely scrutinized a planned trip by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi in Taiwan. Japan said this past week, as a result of the current aggression, it is possible that Russia's national power in the medium to long term may decline, and the military's balance within the region and military cooperation with China may change. In the vicinity of Japan, Russia has made moves to strengthen cooperation with China, such that through joint bomber flights and joint warship sales involving the Russian and Chinese militaries, as well as moves to portray such military cooperation as strategic coordination. Japan said this alignment between the two countries must continue to be closely watched in the future. Regarding Pelosi's travel plans to Taiwan, Biden commented, "The military thing is not a good idea right now, but I don't know what the status of it is." I personally interpret Biden's passivity concerning this issue in relation to potentially endless blackmailable material China likely has on Hunter's doings. By all appearances, Hunter seemingly has allowed for the discovery of his escapades to sabotage his dad's presidency, or perhaps to reduce the leverage China could have on his dad. It was revealed that on Hunter Biden's laptop, there's information of Joe Biden meeting with foreign officials. Examples given including between February 15th and 18th, 2012, Hunter Biden was wined and dined by billionaire oligarchs in Moscow, including one now wanted for M-word. 4 days after his return, Hunter met with Vice President Biden again at Naval Observatory. In November 2015, Hunter Biden met with Romanian Ambassador to the United States, George Mayer, before heading off for meetings in that country. He returned November 17th and had breakfast with his father at the Naval Observatory 2 days later. Just months after the trip, he teamed up with former FBI Director Louis Freech to help Romanian businessman Gabriel Pakovic avoid jail time. And so you have to ask, what additional information might China have that could further damage Biden's presidency? And so also over this weekend, we finally get General Milley make a statement officially observing the threat from the U.S. military standpoint. China has become more dangerous to the U.S. and its allies. The Chinese military has become significantly more aggressive and dangerous over the last 5 years. Top U.S. military officers said during a trip to Indo-Pacific that included a stop Sunday in Indonesia. General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said to a number of intercepts by Chinese aircraft and ships in the Pacific region with U.S. and other partner forces has increased significantly over that time, and the number of unsafe interactions has risen by similar proportions. The message is the Chinese military in the air and at sea have become significantly more and noticeably more aggressive in this particular region. This is an AOL article. It's noted by Faye Lincoln of Times of Israel. If China invades Taiwan, the global semiconductor industry fails. The U.S. officially recognizes the Communist Ruled People's Republic of China in Beijing as the legal government of China, but unofficially recognizes the Democratic Republic of China, Taiwan, under the 1979 U.S.-Taiwan Relations Act. To ensure peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait, the act allows for the sale of military equipment to Taiwan, but rejects any use of military force to settle the dispute. President Biden, on at least 2 occasions, has stated in contradiction of the act that the United States would come to Taiwan's defense if invaded by China. What is the strategic importance of this island of 23 million people, one smaller than Maryland and Delaware combined, that is causing tensions between the U.S. and China to run so high? Semiconductor computer chips. Taiwan produces 92% of the world's mid-end to advanced computer chips, those configured for use in smartphones, computers, cars, and military equipment. Both the U.S. and China are dependent on Taiwan corporations, largest of which is Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC. Samsung Electronics in South Korea, also a major player in advanced semiconductors, produces the remaining 8% in the global market. Scrolling down here, China has been threatening Taiwan with heightened incursions of patrol, surveillance, fighter jets, and warships into Taiwan's territorial boundaries, along with cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, economic coercion, and geopolitical threats. Over the years, the U.S. has carried out joint simulation war exercises with Taiwanese defense forces. It quickly became clear that the greatest threat to Taiwan, bearing lost lives, would be the loss or shutdown of the semiconductor industry. Given the U.S. dependency on Taiwan, key industries would be impacted. Yet this would indeed be catastrophic for the world. And so this recent political row concerning Nancy Pelosi's worry about going to Taiwan, and a report by the Financial Times earlier stating that Beijing, China had some angry response to that proposed trip, really places the United States in a perceptually inferior position to the Red Country, and perhaps the most extreme sense that we have seen so far. I'm worried that if China is capable of bullying the U.S. in regards to U.S.-Taiwan relations, that true invasion and full reclamation of Taiwan into China is not far off. My guess in the matter is that China will likely continue with tactics of infiltration and subversion rather than outright invasion and attack, because it would significantly upset global economies due to the importance of the semiconductor industry. If the petrodollar becomes eroded, I would wonder if that would lead to further inflation. I think in the future I'll do a video on de-dollarization